Emily Hart stood frozen in a church corridor, her wedding dress dragging behind her like chains. In 20 minutes, she would walk down the aisle to marry Vincent Moretti, a man 40 years her senior, a crime lord who collected wives like trophies. Her hand shook so violently she could barely grip the wall. She had never disobeyed her father, never raised her voice, never said no. But as organ music swelled through the building, something inside her cracked. For the first time in 23 years, Emily Hart made a choice. She ran. If you want to see how far this story reaches, drop a like and comment with your city below. Now, let me take you into Emily's world. Bam. The wedding dress weighed more than Emily did. That was the thought circling her mind as she stumbled through the back hallways of St. Catherine's, the white fabric snagging on every corner, every door handle, every exposed nail in the old wood paneling. The bodice crushed her ribs. The train dragged like an anchor. Her mother had called it a masterpiece. Emily called it a straitjacket made of silk and lies. Her breath came in short, desperate gasps. Behind her she could hear voices. Her father's people probably, or Vincent's men. She couldn't tell anymore and didn't care. The distinction didn't matter. They all wanted the same thing, to drag her back to that altar, to finish what had been arranged when she was 16 and too afraid to understand what it meant. She pushed through a side door and found herself in a narrow alley between the church and the adjacent building. The late afternoon sun hit her face, blinding after the dim corridors. She blinked, disoriented, still clutching handfuls of her dress to keep from tripping. Think, Emily, think. But thinking had never been her strong suit. Not the kind of thinking that involved plans and escape routes and what happens next. She'd spent 23 years being told what to think, what to wear, what to say, who to marry. Independent thought was a luxury she'd never been allowed to develop. A black car sat at the end of the alley, engine running, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. Emily didn't think. She just moved. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she ran, or tried to run anyway. The dress made it more of a frantic waddle. She reached the car and yanked the back door open, throwing herself inside with all the grace of a drowning person grabbing a life raft. "Drive," she gasped. "Please, just drive. I'll pay you whatever." The driver's seat was empty. The car was empty. Emily's heart stopped. No, 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 no. She'd just climbed into some random car like an idiot, and now she was trapped. And they'd find her, and her father would... The driver's door opened. A man slid into the seat with the fluid ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. He didn't look back at her, didn't acknowledge her presence at all. He simply closed the door, put the car in gear, and pulled out of the alley like nothing unusual had happened. Emily pressed herself against the far door, her dress billowing around her like a cloud of accusation. She could see the back of his head, dark hair, precisely cut. Expensive suit jacket, hands on the steering wheel that didn't shake, didn't hesitate. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to. I can get out at the next... You're Emily Hart." His voice cut through her apology like a knife through water, deep, calm, absolutely certain. She froze. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror, and for the first time she saw his eyes. Dark. Measuring. The kind of eyes that missed nothing and forgot less. "The runaway bride," he continued, still driving with that same unhurried precision. "Quite the scene you've made." I'm not... The words tangled in her throat. "Who are you?" "Adrienne Rousseau." The name hit her like a physical blow. Everyone in the city knew that name. You didn't grow up as Richard Hart's daughter without learning the names of his enemies, the people he mentioned in low, dangerous tones when he thought she wasn't listening. Adrienne Rousseau topped that list. Had topped it for years. Emily's father dealt in real estate and construction, legitimate fronts for less legitimate enterprises. Adrienne Rousseau dealt in everything else, imports, exports, the kind of business that happened in shadows and left no paper trail. The two men had been circling each other for a decade, neither quite willing to start a war that might consume them both. And Emily had just climbed into his car. "Let me out." Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Please." "We're doing 60 on the interstate." He changed lanes smoothly. "I'd advise against it." The interstate. They were already on the interstate. She hadn't even noticed. Emily looked out the window. The city was falling away behind them, skyscrapers giving way to industrial parks, then to the kind of empty stretch where anything could happen and no one would know. Where are you taking me? Somewhere your father won't find you. He said it like it was obvious. Isn't that what you want? Why would you help me? Who said I'm helping you? The question hung in the air between them. Emily pulled her knees up to her chest, difficult in the massive dress, but she managed and tried to think, really think. Adrian Russo had no reason to help her. He had every reason to use her. She was Richard Hart's daughter, promised to Vincent Moretti in a marriage designed to unite two criminal empires. She was a pawn, a bargaining chip, a commodity, and she'd just delivered herself into the hands of her father's worst enemy. He'll kill you, she said quietly. My father. When he finds out. Your father's been trying to kill me for 10 years. He's not very good at it. Vincent Moretti is a 63-year-old man who needs a child bride to feel powerful. Adrian's voice held something that might have been contempt. I'm not concerned about Vincent. The car slowed, turning off the interstate onto a smaller road. Trees lined both sides, their branches creating a tunnel of green that blocked out most of the fading sunlight. I need to make a phone call, Emily said suddenly. My phone's in my bag, but I left my bag in the bridal suite. I need to tell someone I'm okay. Who? The question stumped her. Who would she call? Her mother, who'd helped lace her into this dress and told her to stop crying, that every girl gets nervous before her wedding? Her father, who'd sold her like livestock? Her friends from college, the ones who'd stopped calling after graduation when they realized being friends with Richard Hart's daughter came with complications? I don't know, she admitted. Adrian said nothing. They drove for another 20 minutes in silence. Emily watched the trees give way to a tall iron gate, which opened automatically as they approached. Beyond it, a long driveway stretched toward a house that made her father's estate look like a cottage. 3 stories of stone and glass, surrounded by manicured grounds that probably employed a full-time staff. Security cameras were positioned at regular intervals, discreet but visible if you knew what to look for. Emily knew what to look for. She'd grown up in a house just like this one, where safety was an illusion maintained by armed men and technology. The car stopped in front of the main entrance. Adrian got out first, then opened her door. The gesture was so automatic, so ingrained that Emily almost missed the strangeness of it. A man who'd essentially kidnapped her, offering his hand like a gentleman. She didn't take it. She gathered her dress and stumbled out on her own, nearly twisting her ankle on the gravel. Careful. His hand caught her elbow, steadying her. His grip was firm but not painful. Emily jerked away anyway, putting distance between them. I'm fine. You're wearing heels on gravel in a dress that weighs 40 pounds, he said it matter-of-factly. You're not fine. A woman appeared in the doorway, 50s, severe gray hair, wearing what looked like a housekeeper's uniform but carrying herself like a general. Mr. Russo. She took in the scene without visible surprise. Shall I prepare the East Wing? Yes. And find something for Miss Hart to wear that isn't a wedding dress. The woman's gaze flicked to Emily, one quick assessing look that took in everything. The tear-stained face, the trembling hands, the way Emily was trying very hard not to collapse. Of course. This way, miss. Emily didn't move. What happens now? She asked Adrian. He'd already started toward the house. He paused, turning back to face her fully for the first time. In the fading light, she could see him more clearly, maybe 35, with the kind of face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so controlled, so carefully blank. His suit probably cost more than her wedding dress. Everything about him screamed power, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Now you decide what you want. I want to go home. No, you don't. The certainty in his voice made her angry. You don't know what I want. I know you didn't climb into a stranger's car because you wanted to go home. He tilted his head slightly, studying her. You climbed into my car because you were desperate. So here's the situation, Emily. Your father is currently tearing the city apart looking for you. Vincent Moretti is considering it a personal insult. In approximately 3 hours, every law enforcement officer and criminal with a grudge will have your picture. You have 3 options. He counted them off on his fingers. 1. I take you back. You marry Vincent, live whatever life that entails, and we pretend this never happened. 2. I drop you at a bus station with enough cash to disappear. You're on your own. 3. You stay here, where no one will find you until we figure out what comes next." "Why would you do that?" Emily's voice cracked. "Why would you help me at all?" "Because Richard Hart's daughter running away from her own wedding is the most interesting thing that's happened in months." His expression didn't change. "And because I'm curious what kind of person you'll be when you're not scared." He walked into the house, leaving her standing in the driveway with the housekeeper. The woman, she introduced herself as Mrs. Chen, led Emily through halls that felt like a museum. Original art on the walls, floors so polished Emily could see her reflection. Everything spotless, everything expensive, everything carefully curated to project power. The East Wing turned out to be a suite of rooms bigger than Emily's apartment at college had been. Bedroom, sitting room, bathroom, with a tub that could fit 3 people. French doors opened onto a balcony overlooking gardens that probably required a full-time team. "I'll bring you some clothes," Mrs. Chen said. "Mr. Russo keeps a selection for guests. They should fit well enough." "Does he have a lot of female guests?" It came out more bitter than Emily intended. Mrs. Chen's expression didn't change. "Mr. Russo has a lot of business associates. Some of them are women. Some of them occasionally need to stay overnight." She moved toward the door. "There are towels in the bathroom. Dinner is at 8 if you'd like to join Mr. Russo. If not, I can bring something up." She left before Emily could respond. Emily stood in the middle of the room, still wearing the dress, still shaking. Then she started laughing. It bubbled up from somewhere deep and hysterical, the kind of laughter that was close cousins with crying. She pressed her hands to her mouth, trying to muffle it, but it kept coming. She'd run away from her wedding and ended up with Adrian Russo. Adrian Russo, who her father had warned her about since childhood, who Vincent had mentioned with casual contempt, who existed in her mind as more monster than man. And he'd offered her a choice. That's what broke her, finally. Not the fear, not the adrenaline crash, but the simple fact that someone had asked her what she wanted. Emily sank to the floor, the dress pooling around her, and cried until she couldn't anymore. She must have fallen asleep on the floor, because the next thing she knew, someone was knocking on the door. "Miss Hart? May I come in?" Emily blinked, disoriented. The light had changed. Evening now, the room dim except for a lamp Mrs. Chen must have turned on. "Yes." Mrs. Chen entered carrying a tray, tea, sandwiches, and a neat stack of folded clothes. "I thought you might prefer to eat something before attempting the dining room." She set everything on the coffee table. "The bathroom has everything you need. Take your time. Mr. Russo isn't expecting you." Emily struggled to her feet, her legs numb from sitting on the floor. "Can you help me with this dress?" 20 minutes later, Emily stood under a shower hot enough to scald, watching wedding makeup run down the drain in streams of beige and black. The dress hung on the back of the door like an accusation. She'd needed Mrs. Chen's help with the buttons. Dozens of tiny fabric-covered buttons running down her spine, each one fastened by her mother's hands that morning. That morning. It felt like a year ago. Emily washed her hair 3 times, trying to get out all the pins and spray. Her scalp ached. Everything ached. She stayed in the shower until the water started to cool, then forced herself out. The clothes Mrs. Chen had brought fit surprisingly well. Soft cotton pants, a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than Emily's monthly car payment back when she'd had a car. Everything in muted colors, nothing flashy. She found a hair tie in one of the drawers and pulled her wet hair back. The girl in the mirror looked young, exhausted, lost. Emily turned away. She ate the sandwiches mechanically, not tasting them, washing them down with tea that had gone lukewarm. Through the balcony doors, she could see lights coming on across the grounds. Security lights, probably. Keeping watch. A clock on the mantel read 9:47. Emily had been married by now, in the timeline that didn't happen. She'd have stood next to Vincent while he made his vows, while her father watched approvingly, while 2 criminal empires sealed their alliance with her as the contract. She thought about Vincent's hands, the way he'd touched her face during their courtship. 3 supervised dinners where he'd talked about his expectations for a wife, for children, for obedience. The way he'd looked at her like she was something he'd already purchased, just waiting for delivery. A knock at the door made her jump. "It's unlocked." Adrian stepped inside, still wearing the suit from earlier but with his tie loosened, top button undone. He looked tired, actually tired, not the carefully maintained composure from the car. How are you feeling? Like I ruined my life. Did you? He moved to the balcony doors, looking out at the grounds. What was your life before this? Emily considered the question. Waiting? For what? For someone to tell me what to do next. He turned to face her. And now? Now I'm still waiting, just in a different room. Something flickered across his expression, amusement maybe, or approval. You're sharper than you pretend to be. I'm not pretending anything. Yes, you are. He leaned against the doorframe. You've been pretending your whole life. Pretending to be smaller, quieter, less than you are. It's a survival strategy. I recognize it. You don't know anything about me. I know your father underestimated you. I know Vincent Moretti saw you as a trophy. I know you spent 23 years being invisible. He paused. And I know you got tired of it. Emily wanted to argue, to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Because he was right. She had been tired. So tired of being looked through, talked over, decided for. What happens tomorrow? She asked instead. Tomorrow your father will make demands. Vincent will make threats. The police will get involved because kidnapping is still technically illegal, even when the victim climbs into the car willingly. He said it all calmly, like discussing the weather. I'll handle it. How? That's not your concern. It's my life. Then what do you want to do about it? He straightened, moving closer. Not threatening, just closing the distance. You asked what happens next. I'm asking you the same question. What do you want, Emily? No one had ever asked her that before. Not really. Not and meant it. I don't know, she whispered. Then figure it out. He headed for the door, then paused. You're safe here. No one gets past my security. Take the time you need. Why? He looked back at her. Why what? Why are you doing this? Don't tell me it's curiosity. Nobody risks a war with Richard Hart and Vincent Moretti over curiosity. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, my mother was promised to a man she didn't choose. She went through with it because she thought she didn't have options. She was wrong. His voice stayed level, but something in his eyes had gone cold. You climbed into my car instead of walking down that aisle. That took more courage than most people have. I'm curious what you'll do with it. He left before Emily could respond. She stood alone in the guest room, in borrowed clothes, in a house belonging to her father's enemy, and tried to figure out what she wanted. The problem was, she'd spent so long being what everyone else wanted that she wasn't sure she knew how to want things for herself. But she had all night to learn. Emily didn't sleep well. The bed was comfortable, the room quiet, but her mind wouldn't shut off. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her father's face, heard Vincent's voice, felt the weight of that dress dragging her down. At 6 a.m., she gave up and went looking for coffee. The house was massive and confusing, but she followed her nose and found the kitchen, an enormous space with commercial-grade appliances and enough counter space to run a restaurant. Mrs. Chen was already there preparing breakfast. Good morning, Miss Hart. Coffee? Please, and call me Emily. Mrs. Chen poured her a cup from a pot that smelled like heaven. Milk? Sugar? Black is fine. They sat in companionable silence for a moment. Through the kitchen windows, Emily could see the sun starting to rise over the gardens. How long have you worked for Mr. Russo? Emily asked. 15 years. That's a long time. Mr. Russo is a good employer, fair, loyal to the people who work for him. Mrs. Chen studied Emily over her coffee cup. He's also very private. The fact that you're here at all is unusual. He told you why I'm here? He told me you needed somewhere safe to stay. That's all I need to know. Emily wrapped her hands around the warm mug. Do you think I'm stupid for running? I think running from something takes courage. Running toward something takes more. Mrs. Chen stood, returning to her breakfast preparations. The question is, which one are you doing? Before Emily could answer, Adrian walked in. He looked like he'd been up for hours, freshly showered, wearing different clothes, the kind of alertness that came from being thoroughly awake. He went straight for the coffee. Morning. Morning, Emily echoed. He glanced at her, then at Mrs. Chen. I need to make some calls. Emily, If you want to join me for breakfast in an hour, we can discuss next steps. Okay. He left with his coffee, already pulling out his phone. Mrs. Chen started cracking eggs into a bowl. He's not usually this polite before 9. What's he usually like? Focused, intense, not great with small talk. She whisked the eggs. But he takes care of the people under his protection. You could do worse. Emily didn't know what to say to that. An hour later, she found herself in a dining room that could seat 20, sitting across from Adrian while Mrs. Chen served what appeared to be a full breakfast spread. You didn't have to, Emily started. Mrs. Chen enjoys cooking for people who appreciate it, Adrian interrupted. Eat. So she ate. Scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, toast with butter that tasted real instead of like the fake spread her mother bought. She hadn't realized how hungry she was until food appeared in front of her. Adrian ate mechanically, like it was a necessary task to complete. He had a tablet next to his plate, checking it between bites. Your father released a statement, he said without preamble. You were kidnapped from the church by an unknown assailant. He's offering a reward for information leading to your safe return. Emily's appetite vanished. He's lying. Of course he is, but it's a smart play. Makes you the victim instead of a runaway. Maintains the engagement, maintains the alliance with Moretti. What did Vincent say? Nothing publicly. Privately, he's furious, considers it a personal humiliation. Adrian glanced up from his tablet. He wants you found, quickly. Emily set down her fork. I can't go back. I know. No, I mean, I can't. Her voice started to shake. If I go back, my father will make sure this never happens again. I don't know what he'll do, but I know it won't be good. And Vincent, you're not going back. The certainty in Adrian's voice cut through her rising panic. But I said what would happen, not what we're going to do about it. He pushed his plate aside. Your father and Moretti have a problem. You're gone, and they need to save face. That gives us leverage. Leverage for what? For keeping you dead. Emily blinked. What? Adrian leaned back in his chair. Not literally, but in terms of Richard Hart's daughter, the obedient child who did what she was told. That person needs to disappear, permanently. I don't understand. You can't be Emily Hart anymore. That name, that identity, it's tied to your father, to his business, to everything you're running from. If you want to stay gone, you need to become someone else. The implications of that hit her slowly. You mean fake my death? Too dramatic, too many questions. Better to simply vanish. Let your father spin whatever story he wants. Meanwhile, you build a new life. How? New name, new background, new everything. It's not as hard as you'd think. He said it like he'd done it before. Maybe he had. The question is whether you're willing to do it. Emily thought about her mother, who she'd never been close to but was still her mother. Her childhood bedroom, her college diploma with her name on it, the few friends she'd managed to keep. Everything that said she'd existed, that she'd mattered, even a little. Would I ever be able to see them again? My family? Eventually, maybe. In a few years, when things have settled, if you want to. Adrian's expression didn't change. But not as Emily Hart. That person has to stay gone. Who would I be? Whoever you want. There it was again, that question, that impossible freedom. Emily stood, needing to move. She went to the window, looking out at grounds that could have been anywhere, that told her nothing about where she really was. I need time to think. You have until tonight. After that, your father's people will widen the search. The longer you stay in one place, the more risk everyone takes. Everyone meaning you. Meaning everyone in this house, yes. I can protect you, Emily, but not if you're indecisive. He stood as well. I have work to do. Mrs. Chen will get you anything you need. We'll talk again at dinner. He left her standing at the window, drowning in choices she'd never learned how to make. Emily spent the day exploring the house. Not snooping exactly, but walking, learning the layout, the rhythm of the place. She saw security personnel, always at a distance, always professional. She saw Mrs. Chen directing a small army of staff who appeared and disappeared like ghosts. She saw a library with floor-to-ceiling books and wondered if Adrian had read any of them, or if they were just for show. In the afternoon, she found a gym, treadmills, weights, a full boxing setup. She stood in the doorway, watching dust motes float in the sunlight, and remembered being 14 and asking her father if she could take a self-defense class. He'd laughed and said that's what bodyguards were for. Emily hadn't had bodyguards today. She'd been on her own, walking through a stranger's house, and no one had stopped her or questioned her or told her where she could and couldn't go. It felt strange, wrong, like wearing shoes on the wrong feet. She found Adrian in what appeared to be his office, a large room with a desk, computers, and maps covering one wall. He was on the phone, speaking in a language she didn't recognize. He saw her in the doorway and motioned her in without breaking his conversation. Emily sat in one of the chairs facing his desk and waited. He finished the call, made some notes, then looked at her. Decision? I want to ask you something first. Go ahead. If I do this, if I disappear, become someone new, what do you get out of it? He seemed to consider how to answer that. Richard Hart has been a problem for a long time. He operates in my territory, undercuts my businesses, causes complications. I can't move against him directly without starting a war neither of us wants. But if I'm gone, if you're gone, his alliance with Moretti weakens. Vincent doesn't get the young wife he wanted. The marriage that was supposed to unite their operations doesn't happen. They start questioning each other, blaming each other. Adrian leaned forward. I don't have to destroy your father. I just have to help him destroy himself. Using me. Using the choice you already made. You ran, Emily. I'm just offering you a place to run to. It was honest, at least. Brutally honest. And if I say no, if I want to try on my own, then I'll give you money and a head start and wish you luck. But you should know, your father has resources. If you're out there alone, he'll find you eventually. And if I stay with you, then you have my protection, my resources, a chance to actually disappear instead of just hiding. Emily looked at her hands, small hands, soft, with nails her mother had insisted be manicured for the wedding, hands that had never done anything harder than type papers for college classes. What would I have to do? Learn, adapt, become someone your father wouldn't recognize even if he looked right at you. Adrian's voice softened slightly. It won't be easy. You'll have to give up everything familiar, but you'll be free. Free. The word sounded foreign. I'll do it, Emily said quietly. You're sure? No, but I'm more sure about this than I was about marrying Vincent. Something that might have been a smile crossed Adrian's face. Good enough. We start tonight. Start what? Killing Emily Hart. He said it so casually that it took Emily a moment to process. Then she understood. They were going to erase her, bit by bit, until nothing remained except a girl who'd run from a wedding and never looked back. And somewhere in the wreckage, someone new would emerge. Emily just had to figure out who that person was. The first thing Adrian did was take away her phone. But I don't even have my phone, Emily protested. I left it at the church. Good. Don't get another one. He was already typing on his laptop, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. Phones are tracking devices that occasionally make calls. Emily Hart's phone is sitting in an evidence bag somewhere, or your father has it. Either way, it's a liability. They were in his office, the maps on the wall now covered with what looked like surveillance photos and organizational charts. Emily recognized some of the faces. Her father's associates, Vincent's people, various power players in the city's criminal ecosystem. How am I supposed to communicate with anyone? You're not. Not yet. Adrian glanced up from his screen. For the next few weeks, you don't exist. No contact with anyone from your old life. No social media, no email, nothing digital that can be traced. Emily sank into the chair across from his desk. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. There's a difference. Doesn't feel different. It will. He turned his laptop around, showing her a news article. Look. The headline read, Heiress missing after church ceremony disrupted. Below it, a photo of Emily from last year, taken at some charity function her father had dragged her to. She looked polished in the picture, fake smiling. Nothing like the girl currently sitting in worn cashmere and still damp hair. They're running with the kidnapping angle, Adrian said. Your father's offering $500,000 for information. Vincent's people are pressuring the police to classify it as a federal case. Federal? Crossing state lines, organized crime involvement, the whole package. They're making it a big deal. He closed the laptop. Which works in our favor. The more resources they waste looking for Emily Hart, the less attention they pay to everything else. Everything else like what? Adrian stood, moving to the maps on the wall. He pointed to a warehouse district on the east side of the city. Your father's been using this area for imports. Legitimate cargo mixed with less legitimate items. I've been trying to get evidence for months. And now? Now he's distracted, sloppy. When people are emotional, they make mistakes. He looked at her. I'm going to use that. Emily felt something cold settle in her stomach. You're using me as bait. I'm using the situation. You already ran, Emily. I'm just making sure it counts for something. She wanted to be angry, wanted to feel betrayed. But the truth was she'd known this wasn't charity. Adrian Russo didn't do things out of the goodness of his heart. He told her that himself. What do I have to do? For now, nothing. Stay here, stay out of sight. Let me handle your father. He pulled out a folder from his desk drawer. Tomorrow, we start building your new identity. But tonight, you need to understand something. What? The girl who ran from that church yesterday? She's gone. You can't be her anymore, not even in private. Every habit, every mannerism, every way you interact with the world, it all has to change, otherwise someone will recognize you eventually. Emily's hands started shaking again. I don't know how to be anyone else. Then learn. His voice wasn't cruel, just matter of fact. You learned how to be Emily Hart. You can learn how to be someone new. A knock at the door interrupted them. Mrs. Chen entered carrying a tray with tea and what looked like documents. The papers you requested, she said, setting everything on Adrian's desk. Thank you. He waited until she'd left before opening the first folder. Birth certificate, social security card, driver's license, all legitimate, all traceable if anyone looks hard enough. Your new name is Sarah Mitchell, 25 years old, from Portland, recently moved to the area for work. Emily stared at the documents. The birth certificate looked real, worn at the edges like it had been folded and unfolded many times. The name Sarah Mitchell was typed in official font, but the photo on the driver's license was wrong. That's not me. It will be. We'll take new photos tomorrow once we've changed your appearance. Changed my appearance how? Hair color, contacts if you want to change your eye color, different style of clothing. Small changes that add up to someone completely different. Adrian pulled out another folder. Sarah Mitchell has a job at one of my legitimate businesses, a bookstore in the Arts District. You'll work there, live above it, establish a routine, become real. A bookstore? Emily couldn't hide her surprise. You have a degree in English literature. It's one of the few things from your real life we can use. He studied her. Unless you'd prefer something else. No, it's just... I didn't think you knew that. I know everything about you, Emily. Where you went to school, what you studied, the fact that you spent most of college trying to be invisible. He said it without judgment. The question is whether you want to keep being invisible or if you want to actually exist. Emily thought about her college years. 4 years of keeping her head down, making acquaintances but no real friends, studying in her dorm room instead of going to parties. Her father's name had followed her everywhere, a shadow she couldn't escape. People either wanted to use her connection or were scared of it. I want to exist, she said quietly. Good. Then we start tomorrow at 7. Get some rest. It wasn't a suggestion. Emily left his office and wandered back to her room, her mind spinning. Sarah Mitchell. The name felt foreign, like trying on someone else's clothes. But maybe that was the point. She found Mrs. Chen in the kitchen, preparing what looked like dinner for a small army. Can I help? Emily asked. Mrs. Chen looked up, surprised. You want to help cook? I want to do something with my hands. I'm going crazy just sitting around. For a moment, Emily thought she'd be refused. Then Mrs. Chen nodded toward the vegetables on the counter. Those peppers need chopping, small dice. Emily picked up a knife, weighing it in her hand. She'd never been allowed in the kitchen growing up. Her mother had a chef, and Emily's job was to appear at dinner looking presentable, not to prepare the food. In college, she'd survived on takeout and whatever she could microwave. I don't really know how, she admitted. Then I'll teach you. Mrs. Chen moved beside her, demonstrating the proper grip. Cooking is about control. You decide what goes in, how it's prepared, what it becomes. Useful skill. They worked in silence for a while, Emily concentrating on cutting the peppers into even pieces. It was harder than it looked. Her cuts were uneven, and she nearly sliced her finger twice. You're gripping too tight, Mrs. Chen observed. Let the knife do the work. Emily loosened her grip, tried again. Better, but still clumsy. I'm terrible at this. You've been doing it for 10 minutes. Excellence takes practice. Mrs. Chen started browning meat in a pan. Mr. Russo told me what you're doing, the new identity. Emily's hands stilled. And I think you're braver than you give yourself credit for. She glanced over. Most people would have gone back, faced the consequences. You're choosing uncertainty instead. Or I'm a coward who's running away. Running toward something isn't cowardice, it's hope. Emily thought about that while she finished the peppers. Hope seemed like a generous interpretation. Desperation felt more accurate. They prepared dinner together, Mrs. Chen offering quiet corrections and occasional praise when Emily got something right. By the time everything was ready, Emily's hands hurt, and she was exhausted, but she'd made something. It wasn't much, just chopped vegetables and stirring sauce, but it was more than she'd done in years. Thank you, she told Mrs. Chen. For what? For treating me like a person instead of a problem. Mrs. Chen's expression softened. Everyone in this house is here because Mr. Russo gave them a chance when no one else would. That includes me. I'm just passing it forward. Emily wanted to ask what she meant, but Adrian appeared in the doorway before she could. Dinner ready? Just finishing. Mrs. Chen started plating food. Emily helped. Adrian's gaze flicked to Emily, something unreadable in his expression. Did she? They ate in the kitchen instead of the formal dining room, the three of them around the large wooden table. It felt almost normal, if you ignored the security cameras and the loaded gun Emily spotted in Adrian's shoulder holster when his jacket shifted. Your father filed a missing persons report, Adrian said between bites. The FBI is officially involved now. Emily's appetite vanished. That's bad. It's expected. They'll investigate, find nothing, eventually move on to other cases. Missing adults are low priority unless there's evidence of foul play. He'll tell them I was kidnapped. He'll tell them he believes you were kidnapped. Without evidence, it's just a worried father's theory. Adrian refilled his water glass. The key is making sure they don't find evidence. What kind of evidence could they find? You, mostly. If they locate you and you tell them you left willingly, it undermines his entire narrative. He looked at her directly. Which is why you need to understand, if law enforcement finds you, you can't tell them the truth. You ran away, yes, but you're safe now. You don't want to be found, and you're asking them to respect your privacy as an adult. Will they? Legally, they have to. You're 23, not a minor. If you tell them you're safe and don't want your location disclosed, they'll close the case. And if my father doesn't accept that, he won't. But there's nothing he can do about it without admitting he wanted to force you into an unwanted marriage, which raises questions he doesn't want answered. Adrian's voice hardened. Your father's power comes from reputation. He can't afford to look like a man who can't control his own daughter. The words stung, but they were true. Richard Hart's entire empire was built on fear and respect. A daughter who publicly defied him undermined both. He'll come after you, Emily said. Blame you for taking me. Let him try. The certainty in Adrian's voice sent chills down her spine. Not fear exactly. Something else. Something that felt dangerously like safety. After dinner, Emily retreated to her room and found new clothes laid out on the bed. Not the expensive cashmere from before, but regular clothes. Jeans, t-shirts, a leather jacket that looked worn but well made. A note in Mrs. Chen's handwriting read, For tomorrow. Dress comfortable. Emily tried on the jeans. They fit perfectly, which was somehow more unsettling than if they'd been wrong. Someone had paid attention to her size, her measurements. Someone had cared about details. She sat on the bed surrounded by clothes meant for someone named Sarah Mitchell and tried to imagine being that person. What would Sarah like? How would she talk, walk, hold herself? Would she be confident or shy? Outgoing or reserved? The possibilities were overwhelming. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Come in? Adrian entered carrying a laptop. I thought you might want to see something. He set the laptop on the bed, angling it so she could see the screen. It showed a news broadcast, the volume muted. Her father stood behind a podium, looking appropriately devastated. Vincent Moretti stood beside him, stone-faced. Adrian unmuted the audio. Our family is going through a nightmare, her father was saying, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. My daughter Emily is a gentle, trusting soul. We believe she was targeted because of our family's prominence. We're asking anyone with information to please come forward. The camera cut to a reporter. Mr. Hart, some witnesses say they saw your daughter running from the church voluntarily. Can you comment on that? Her father's expression hardened for a fraction of a second before smoothing out. My daughter was clearly in distress. Whatever she was running from, we need to find her and bring her home safely. Adrian muted the audio again. He's good. I'll give him that. He's a liar. Most successful people are. He closed the laptop. But he made a mistake. He put Vincent next to him at that press conference. Makes it look like they're united, but it also ties Vincent to the narrative. If you turn up safe and voluntarily gone, Vincent looks like a fool for the whole grieving almost husband performance. Emily hadn't thought about it that way. You're trying to drive a wedge between them. I'm highlighting cracks that already exist. Vincent's ego is fragile. Your father's control is slipping. Eventually, they'll blame each other. Adrian stood, picking up the laptop. And when they do, I'll be ready. What happens to me when all this is over? You'll be Sarah Mitchell, living a quiet life in a bookstore, if you want to stay that way. What else would I be? He paused at the door. That's up to you. Sleep well, Emily. Sarah, she corrected quietly. If I'm going to be here, I should start using the name. Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Approval, maybe. Good night, Sarah. He left, and Emily was alone with her new name and the growing realization that she'd traded one cage for another. This one was bigger, nicer, but still had walls. The difference was, this time she'd chosen it. That had to count for something. The next morning started at 6, not 7. Adrian knocked once, then entered without waiting for permission. Up. We have work to do. Emily stumbled out of bed, still half asleep. You said 7. I changed my mind. Bathroom's occupied by a hairstylist and a makeup artist. They have 2 hours to transform you. Transform me into what? Someone your father wouldn't recognize if he passed you on the street. The hairstylist turned out to be a woman named Lucia, mid-40s with platinum blonde hair and an accent Emily couldn't place. The makeup artist was younger, tattooed, introducing herself as just Kai. They looked at Emily like she was a project. The hair has to go, Lucia said, running her fingers through Emily's dark brown waves. Color and cut. How short? Emily asked nervously. Shoulder length, layers for movement, and we're going lighter. Not blonde, too obvious, but caramel, some highlights, make you look sun-touched instead of hidden. Kai circled Emily, studying her face. Bone structure is good. We can work with this. But the way you hold yourself needs to change. You fold inward, make yourself smaller. Sarah Mitchell doesn't do that. How do you know what Sarah Mitchell does? Because I'm creating her. Kai pulled out what looked like a tackle box full of makeup. Sarah is confident, but not flashy. She makes eye contact. She doesn't apologize for existing. That starts with how you see yourself. The next 2 hours were a blur of chemicals and cutting, and Lucia chattering in a mix of English and what might have been Italian. Emily watched in the mirror as her hair got shorter, lighter, transformed into something that caught light instead of absorbing it. Kai worked on her face with the precision of a surgeon, explaining each step. You've been hiding behind no makeup, which ironically makes you more memorable. Sarah wears enough to look polished but natural. Men notice the no makeup look more than they think they do. I'm not trying to attract men. You're trying to be invisible to the right people and visible to everyone else. That's a balance. Kai blended something on Emily's cheeks. The goal is to look like someone who belongs, who has a life and purpose, not someone running scared. When they finished, Emily stared at herself in the mirror. The woman looking back was her, but not. The lighter hair softened her features. The subtle makeup made her eyes look bigger, more direct. Kai had shown her how to straighten her posture, lift her chin. Say your name, Lucia instructed. Emily Hart. No, your name. Emily took a breath in. Sarah Mitchell. Again, like you believe it. Sarah Mitchell. Better. Lucia started packing her supplies. Remember, hair grows, dye fades. You'll need touch-ups every 6 weeks. Kai will show you the makeup routine. Practice until it's automatic. They left, and Emily was alone with the stranger in the mirror. Adrian appeared behind her, his reflection studying hers. What do you think? She asked. I think Emily Hart is dead. He met her eyes in the mirror, and Sarah Mitchell is ready to start living. The next week passed in a blur of transformation. Adrian had Emily practice her new signature until it was automatic. She memorized Sarah Mitchell's backstory. Grew up in Portland, parents died in a car accident when she was 20, worked various retail jobs before moving east for a fresh start. The lies came easier than Emily expected, which bothered her more than she wanted to admit. Mrs. Chen taught her to cook, really cook, not just chop vegetables. Emily learned that she liked the structure of recipes, the way following instructions led to predictable results. So different from her real life, where following instructions had led to a wedding dress and a man she despised. Adrian had her study maps of the city, learning neighborhoods she'd never visited as Emily Hart. Sarah Mitchell would know the arts district, the vintage shops, the coffee places where artists gathered. She wouldn't know the country clubs or charity galas where Emily had spent her youth. You're building a life, not just a lie, Adrian explained one afternoon. Sarah has favorite places, opinions about things, a routine. Make her real. What if I mess up? Say something that gives me away? You will mess up. Everyone does. He didn't look up from the papers he was reviewing. The key is not panicking when it happens. People forget details about themselves all the time. It's normal. On the 8th day, Adrian drove her to the bookstore. It was tucked between a vintage clothing shop and a cafe in a neighborhood Emily had never visited. The sign read, Chapter and Verse in faded gold letters. Through the window, she could see shelves packed with books, a worn armchair in the corner, plants that looked like they might be dying. It's perfect, Emily breathed. Adrian unlocked the door. It's been closed for 6 months. The previous owner retired, and I bought the property. You'll run it, live upstairs, establish yourself in the community. The interior smelled like old paper and dust. Emily walked between the shelves, trailing her fingers over spines. Fiction, poetry, history, everything jumbled together without clear organization. It needs work, Adrian said. It needs love. Emily pulled out a book, blowing dust off the cover. When do I start? Tomorrow. I've scheduled some contractors to fix the apartment upstairs, update the electrical. But the store itself, that's yours to figure out. Emily turned to face him. Why a bookstore? Why not something easier? Because Sarah Mitchell loves books. Because it's believable. And because you need something that's yours, not just a cover story. He moved toward the door. Make it real, Sarah. Make it matter. He left her there, alone in the dusty bookstore, and for the first time since climbing into his car, Emily felt something other than fear. She felt possibility. The apartment above the store was small but functional. 1 bedroom, a bathroom that had seen better decades, a kitchen with appliances that probably predated Emily's birth. But it had windows that let in real light, and it was hers. Mrs. Chen arrived the next day with cleaning supplies and opinions. This place is a disaster. It has character, Emily defended. Character is what people say when they mean old and falling apart. Mrs. Chen started opening windows. But we can work with it. They spent 3 days cleaning, painting, making the space livable. Emily learned she was terrible at painting. She got more on herself than the walls, but she kept trying anyway. Mrs. Chen brought curtains, a few pieces of furniture, things that made the apartment feel like someone actually lived there. Where did all this come from? Emily asked, looking at the bookshelf that had appeared while she was grocery shopping. Mr. Russo has storage units full of furniture from various properties. I picked things that suited Sarah Mitchell. How do you know what suits Sarah Mitchell? Mrs. Chen gave her a long look. Because I know you. And Sarah is just you without the fear. Emily wanted to argue, to say that wasn't true, but the words wouldn't come. Downstairs, the bookstore slowly came back to life. Emily organized the shelves properly, created sections that made sense. She discovered the previous owner had excellent taste but terrible organization. First editions mixed with paperbacks, valuable books shoved next to book club novels. She made lists, inventory that could be sold, damaged books that needed disposal, gaps in the collection that should be filled. It was methodical work, satisfying in a way she hadn't expected. 2 weeks after moving in, Emily opened the store. She'd put a small ad in the local paper, updated the ancient website, posted on social media accounts Adrian's people had created for Sarah Mitchell. Nothing fancy, just announcing the reopening under new ownership. The first customer was a woman in her 60s, wearing a cardigan covered in cat hair. "I used to come here all the time," she said, looking around with watery eyes. "I was so sad when Martin closed up." "Martin was the previous owner?" Emily asked. "For 30 years. Best bookseller in the city. He knew every customer, what they liked, would set books aside when he thought they'd enjoy something." The woman smiled. "I'm Dorothy." "Sarah." The name came out smooth now, natural. "Sarah Mitchell. You look too young to run a bookstore." "I'm 25, and I love books." Emily gestured to the shelves. "Martin left an incredible collection. I'm still discovering everything." Dorothy browsed for an hour, eventually buying 3 mysteries and a cookbook. She promised to come back next week. More customers trickled in throughout the day. Some were curious about the new owner. Others had been regulars and wanted to see if the store was the same. Emily talked to each one, learning what they liked, making recommendations when she could. By closing time, she'd sold 14 books and felt more accomplished than she'd felt in years. Adrian showed up as she was locking the door. "How was the first day?" "Good. Really good, actually." Emily pocketed the key. "People were nice." "Did anyone ask questions?" "About me? A few. Where I'm from, how I ended up here. I stuck to the story." "And?" "And they believed me." Emily looked at him. "Is it always going to feel this strange? Lying to everyone?" "Eventually it won't feel like lying. It'll just be your life." Adrian started walking and Emily fell into step beside him. "The bookstore suits you." "How would you know? You barely know me." "I know you well enough." He glanced at her. "You're careful with people, good at reading them. Those are useful skills for a bookseller." They walked in silence for a block. The neighborhood was quieter at night, restaurants closing, streetlights creating pools of yellow on the sidewalk. "Can I ask you something?" Emily said. "You can ask. I might not answer." "Why do you live the way you do? All the security, the guards, She gestured vaguely. "Everything. Because people want me dead." He said it simply, like commenting on the weather. "I've made enemies. Lots of them. Security isn't paranoia when the threats are real." "Doesn't it get exhausting, always being on guard?" "It's the only life I know." He stopped at the corner. "My car's this way. Do you need a ride?" "I'm 3 blocks from the store. I can walk." Sarah Mitchell walks home alone at night. Emily Hart wouldn't have. He studied her. "You're doing well. Keep it up." He left, and Emily walked back to the bookstore, to the apartment above it, to the life she was building one careful lie at a time. She didn't feel like Emily Hart anymore, but she wasn't quite Sarah Mitchell yet either. She was somewhere in between, and that liminal space felt more honest than anything she'd been before. 3 months into being Sarah Mitchell, Emily forgot to answer to her real name. It happened at the bookstore on a Tuesday afternoon. A woman came in asking for recommendations, and halfway through their conversation, she said something about Emily Dickinson. Emily didn't even register the name. She kept talking about poetry collections, completely missing the moment until later that night when she replayed the conversation and realized what had happened. She'd stopped being Emily, even in her own head. The thought should have scared her. Instead, it felt like relief. The bookstore had become something real. Dorothy came every Thursday like clockwork, buying mysteries and talking about her cats. A college student named Marcus worked part-time, shelving books and managing the register when Sarah needed to step away. The regulars knew her coffee order at the cafe next door. Black, no sugar, because Sarah Mitchell didn't waste time with cream and sweeteners. Emily had never even liked coffee, but Sarah did, so she learned. Adrian came by once a week, usually on Wednesdays after the evening rush. He'd browse the shelves, buy something he probably wouldn't read, and ask careful questions about whether anyone had been asking too many questions about her past. "You're being paranoid," Emily told him one evening as she locked the register. "I'm being careful. There's a difference. He held up a book about World War II naval battles. You think I'll enjoy this? I think you'll buy it and put it on a shelf with 50 other books you bought here and never opened. She grabbed her jacket from the back room. Why do you keep buying books if you don't read them? I read. When? When I have time. Which is never. Emily smiled despite herself. You could just admit you're checking up on me. I'm making sure my investment is secure. Your investment. She locked the front door, testing it twice out of habit. Is that what I am? Adrian didn't answer right away. They walked in silence for half a block before he spoke. Your father's been quiet lately. No new press conferences, no public appeals. That bothers me. Maybe he gave up. Richard Hart doesn't give up. He adapts. Adrian's jaw tightened. He's planning something. I just don't know what yet. Emily felt the familiar flutter of fear in her chest, the one that showed up whenever her father was mentioned. She'd been so focused on becoming Sarah Mitchell that she'd almost let herself forget she was still Emily Hart, still someone her father wanted to find. What do I do? Keep doing what you're doing. Be Sarah. Live your life. He glanced at her. And stay alert. If you see anyone watching the store, anyone asking questions that feel wrong, you tell me immediately. You really think he'd find me? I think your father has resources, and 3 months isn't that long in an investigation. The FBI probably moved on, but he hasn't. Adrian stopped at the corner where they usually parted ways. There's something else. Vincent Moretti was spotted in the city last week. Emily's blood went cold. Why would he be here? I don't know, but he wasn't alone. Had 4 of his people with him, stayed 2 days, then left. Adrian's expression darkened. He's not over the humiliation. Men like Vincent don't forget being left at the altar. It wasn't at the altar. I ran before the ceremony. Semantics. The result is the same. You made him look weak. Adrian moved closer, his voice dropping. If he finds you, he won't care that you're trying to live a quiet life. He'll care that you're the reason people laughed at him. Emily wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the mild evening. So what do I do? Run again? No. Running makes you look guilty, makes you easier to track. You stay here, stay Sarah, and if Vincent shows up, you call me. He pulled out his phone, typing something quickly. I'm putting 2 of my people in the area. They'll be around but not obvious. Extra eyes. I don't want bodyguards. They're not bodyguards. They're insurance. His phone buzzed and he glanced at the screen. I have to go. Be careful, Sarah. He left before she could argue, disappearing into a black car that materialized at the curb like it had been waiting. Emily watched him go, then walked the 3 blocks to her apartment, hyper-aware of every shadow, every parked car, every person on the street. This was the problem with building a new life. You started to care about keeping it. The next day, Emily noticed the man. He came in around noon, browsing the history section with the kind of focus that felt rehearsed. Mid-30s, expensive watch, shoes too clean for someone who actually walked around the city. He picked up books without reading the backs, put them down in the wrong places. Emily watched him from behind the register, her heart rate picking up. Can I help you find something? She asked, keeping her voice steady. Just looking. He didn't make eye contact. Nice place. You the owner? I am. Took over a few months ago. From Martin, right? Used to come here when I was a kid. He finally looked at her, and Emily saw calculation in his eyes. You're new to the neighborhood? Relatively. Moved here from Portland. Portland's nice. What brought you east? Too many questions, too specific. Wanted a change, Emily said lightly. You looking for anything in particular? We have a great selection of local history if you're nostalgic for the area. Maybe another time. He set down the book he'd been holding, upside down, she noted, and headed for the door. See you around. The door closed behind him, and Emily immediately pulled out her phone. Adrian answered on the first ring. What's wrong? Someone was just in the store, asked too many questions, wasn't actually interested in books. She described the man in detail, including the watch and the shoes. Did he give you a name? No, and I didn't ask. Should I have? No, you did right. She heard typing on his end. I'm sending someone to pull the security footage. Stay in the store. Don't leave alone tonight. I'll have Marcus close with you. Adrian? Just precautions, Sarah. Probably nothing, but we don't take chances. He hung up, and Emily was left staring at her phone, at the name Adrian Russo on the screen, at the casual way he'd slipped into taking care of problems she didn't even know how to articulate. Marcus showed up for his shift an hour later, completely unaware of anything wrong. He was a good kid, junior at the state university, studying literature because he genuinely loved it. Emily had hired him 6 weeks ago, and he'd proven reliable, showing up on time and actually reading the books instead of just shelving them. "Big plans tonight?" he asked, organizing the new arrivals. "Just the usual. You?" "Paper due Friday. Probably pull an all-nighter tomorrow." He grinned, living the dream. Emily envied him suddenly. The simple stress of college papers, the normalcy of complaining about deadlines. She'd had that once, briefly, before her father had made it clear that her degree was a formality, that her real future involved marriage and being decorative. 2 men came in around 6, different from the first guy, older, rougher around the edges, wearing jackets despite the warm evening. They didn't browse. They stood near the door, watching. Adrian's people, Emily realized with a mixture of relief and dread. She'd needed extra security. That's what that meant. Marcus noticed them too. Those guys seem lost. "They're fine. Just looking." Emily focused on the inventory spreadsheet she'd been pretending to work on for the last hour. "Hey, Marcus, if anyone comes in asking about me specifically, my background, where I'm from, anything personal, can you let me know?" "Sure, everything okay?" "Yeah, just had a weird customer earlier. Probably nothing." "Weird how?" "Just off. You know how sometimes people give you a bad feeling?" Marcus nodded slowly. "My mom always says trust your gut. She's usually right. Smart woman." They worked in comfortable silence until closing time. The 2 men stayed outside, maintaining a discreet distance but definitely there. Marcus noticed but didn't comment, which Emily appreciated. After Marcus left, one of Adrian's men came in. "Miss Mitchell, I'm going to walk you home. Mr. Russo's orders." "I live 3 blocks away." "Yes, ma'am. Still doing it." His name was Colin, and he was professional to the point of being almost robotic. He walked slightly behind her, eyes constantly scanning the street. Emily felt ridiculous and protected in equal measure. At her door, he did a sweep of the stairwell before letting her go up. "I'll be in the area tonight. You need anything? Call this number." He handed her a card with nothing but a phone number printed on it. "Mr. Russo will be by tomorrow to discuss next steps." "Next steps for what?" "That's between you and him, ma'am. Have a good evening." He left, and Emily climbed the stairs to her apartment, unlocked 3 separate locks Adrian had insisted on installing, and collapsed on her couch. This was supposed to be simple. Disappear, become someone new, live quietly. Instead, she was back to being watched, protected, worried about men with expensive watches asking questions. Her phone rang. "Adrian." "You made it home." "Colin is very thorough." "Colin is former military and takes his job seriously. So do I." Adrian's voice was tight. "The man from this afternoon was doing reconnaissance, checking if you match a description someone gave him." "Whose description?" "I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out." Papers rustled on his end. "In the meantime, I need you to be extra careful. Vary your routine. Don't walk the same route every day. Keep your phone on you at all times." This is exactly what I was trying to avoid. Being watched, being controlled. The difference is, I'm trying to keep you safe, not own you. His voice softened slightly. "I know this isn't what you wanted, Sarah, but your father is still looking, and now it seems like Vincent might be too. We have to assume they're working together until we know otherwise." Emily pressed her palm against her forehead, fighting off a headache. "How long do I have to live like this?" "Until they give up or we convince them you're not worth finding." He paused. "There's a third option." "Which is?" "We go on a fence. Make them worry about their own problems instead of focusing on you." "What does that mean?" "It means I stop playing defense and start playing the game I'm good at." Something in his tone made Emily shiver. "But that's my concern, not yours. You focus on being Sarah Mitchell, bookseller. Let me handle your father." "Adrian, get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow." He hung up before she could argue. Emily sat in her quiet apartment, listening to the sounds of the city outside her window, and tried to remember what peace felt like. Adrian showed up at the bookstore the next morning before she'd even opened. He looked like he hadn't slept. His tie was loose, his expression harder than usual. "We need to talk." Emily unlocked the door, let him in, relocked it behind them. "What happened?" "Vincent met with your father yesterday. My source at the FBI confirmed it. They had dinner at that steakhouse your father owns, the one downtown. 2 hours, private room, no one else present except their personal security. They're working together. They're coordinating. Whether they're actually working together or just comparing notes, I can't tell yet." Adrian moved to the window, checking the street outside. "But the timing is bad. Vincent in town, your father suddenly quiet, and now someone scoping out your store. It's not coincidence." Emily felt the room tilt slightly. "They know where I am. They might suspect, or they're checking every bookstore in the city, seeing if any new female owners match your description." He turned to face her. "Either way, we need to move you." "No." "Sarah, no." Emily stood straighter, fighting the urge to fold into herself. "I built this. The store, the life, all of it. I'm not running again just because my father can't accept that I left. This isn't about pride, isn't it?" She gestured around the store. "You told me to make Sarah Mitchell real. I did. She has customers who depend on this place, an employee who needs the job, a routine and a life. If I run now, what was the point of any of this?" Adrian studied her, his expression unreadable. "The point was keeping you safe." "Safe and alive aren't the same as living." Emily moved closer, needing him to understand. "For the first time in my life, I matter. Not because of who my father is or who I was supposed to marry, but because I built something. People come into this store and talk to me, to Sarah, like I'm a real person with opinions and value. I won't give that up, even if it gets you killed. Even if it's hard." She softened her voice. "I'm not Emily Hart anymore. She would have run. But Sarah Mitchell doesn't run from her own life." Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Not quite approval, but close. "Then we do this differently." He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. "You stay, but we increase security. Colin and another man will rotate shifts outside. You vary your routine, like I said. And you wear this. But..." He handed her a small device, no bigger than a button. "What is it?" "GPS tracker, panic button combination. You press it for 3 seconds, and every person I have in the city gets your location and knows you're in trouble." He showed her how it worked, attaching it to the inside of her jacket collar. "Non-negotiable, Sarah. You want to stay, this is part of the deal." Emily nodded. "Okay. And there's something else. I need you to do something that might be uncomfortable." "What?" "I need you to let Vincent find you." The words hit her like cold water. "What? No, absolutely not." "Listen to me." Adrian's voice took on the tone he used when he was planning something, that calculating edge. "If Vincent finds you and you're just Sarah Mitchell, living a normal life, completely different from the girl he almost married, it might convince him you're not worth the trouble. Or it might make him angry enough to hurt me. Not if I'm there. Not if we control the encounter." Adrian moved closer. He's expecting Emily Hart, scared and hiding. If he meets Sarah Mitchell, confident and building a life, it changes the narrative. You're not his runaway bride. You're just someone who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time 3 months ago. He'll recognize me. Will he? Look at yourself." Adrian gestured to the mirror near the door. "Different hair, different style, different everything. You've changed, Sarah. And more importantly, you've changed how you carry yourself." The girl who ran from that church hunched her shoulders and whispered, "You don't do that anymore." Emily looked at her reflection. He was right. She stood differently now, spoke without apologizing first, made eye contact instead of studying the floor. What if it doesn't work? What if he sees through it? Then I have 12 different contingencies, and Vincent Moretti leaves this city with a very clear understanding of what happens to people who threaten what's mine. The possessiveness in his voice should have bothered her. Instead, it felt like safety. "When?" she asked quietly. "Soon. I'm working on the setup now. In the meantime, you keep being Sarah. Let him come to you." "And if my father comes instead?" Adrian's expression went cold. "Your father won't get within a mile of you. I promise you that." He left, and Emily spent the rest of the day trying to focus on inventory and customer service while her mind spun through worst-case scenarios. Marcus noticed her distraction. "You okay, boss? You seem stressed." "Just thinking about expansion, maybe adding a coffee bar." The lie came easily now. "Lots to figure out." "That'd be cool. Dorothy would camp out here all day." Emily managed to smile. "Exactly my concern." The afternoon passed without incident. Colin was outside, less obvious than yesterday, but still there. A few regular customers came in, bought their usual selections, chatted about the weather. Normal things, normal interactions, the kind of day Sarah Mitchell should be having. Except Emily couldn't shake the feeling of waiting for something to break. It happened on Friday. Emily was restocking the poetry section when the door chimed. She glanced up automatically, ready with her customer service smile. Vincent Moretti stood in her bookstore. He looked exactly like she remembered, tall, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her monthly revenue. But up close, in the daylight, she could see the cruelty in his eyes, the hardness around his mouth. He was looking right at her. Emily's hands started shaking. She forced herself to breathe, to remember everything Adrian had told her. She wasn't Emily Hart. She was Sarah Mitchell, and Sarah Mitchell had never met this man before in her life. "Can I help you?" Her voice came out steady. Small miracle. Vincent moved deeper into the store, studying her. "This is a nice place. Been here long?" "A few months, still getting settled." Emily set down the book she'd been holding, wiping her palms on her jeans. "Looking for anything specific?" "Actually, yes, I'm looking for someone." He pulled out his phone, showing her a photo. It was Emily from a year ago, dressed for some charity event, hair and makeup professional. She looked like a stranger. "Have you seen this woman?" Emily studied the photo like it meant nothing to her. "Can't say I have. Is she missing?" "She disappeared a few months ago. Her family is very worried." "I saw something about that on the news. The heiress, right?" Emily handed back his phone. "I hope they find her. That must be awful for her family." Vincent watched her carefully. "You look a bit like her, actually. Around the eyes." "Lots of people have brown eyes." Emily smiled blandly. "If I see her, should I call someone?" "That won't be necessary." He pocketed his phone, still studying her. "You said you've been here a few months. Where were you before this?" "Portland. Worked retail. Wanted a change?" The lies flowed smooth as water. "This place needed someone who loved books, so here I am." "Portland's a long way from here." "That was kind of the point. Fresh start, you know?" Vincent picked up a book from the display table, a thriller about a woman running from her past. The irony wasn't lost on Emily. "Interesting choice," he said. "It's a good book. Lots of twists." Emily moved behind the register, putting distance and a counter between them. "Can I ring that up for you?" "No, I don't read much." He set it down. "But I'll remember this place. Maybe come back sometime. Always happy to have customers." He left without buying anything, and Emily waited until his car pulled away before she let herself collapse against the counter. Her phone was ringing. Adrian. "He was just here," Emily said before he could speak. "I know. Colin called it in." "You did good." "I don't feel good. I feel like I'm going to throw up." "That's adrenaline. It'll pass." Adrian's voice was calm, grounding. "Did he believe you?" "I don't know, maybe. He said I looked like her." "What did you say?" "That lots of people have brown eyes. Was that okay?" It was perfect. Dismissive, but not defensive. She heard him moving, probably pacing. "He'll report back to your father. Tell him he found a bookstore owner who might look similar but doesn't act right. That's exactly what we want." "What if they come back?" "Then you handle it the same way. You're Sarah Mitchell. You run a bookstore. You have no idea why people keep showing you pictures of some missing heiress." He paused. "I'm proud of you." The words caught Emily off guard. "What?" "You didn't fold. You didn't panic. You stood your ground and played the part." His voice softened. "Emily Hart couldn't have done that. But Sarah Mitchell can." Emily closed her eyes, letting the praise sink in. She'd spent her whole life being told she was disappointing, inadequate, not enough. Hearing someone say they were proud felt foreign and necessary in equal measure. "Thank you. Go home, lock your doors. Colin will be outside tonight. I'll come by tomorrow and we'll figure out next steps. Adrian? Yeah? When does this get easier? He was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if it does, but you get stronger. That's something. After he hung up, Emily locked the store early and went upstairs. She made tea she didn't drink, sat on her couch, and stared at the wall while her hands finally stopped shaking. Vincent Moretti had looked her in the face and hadn't known her. That meant something. It meant the transformation was complete, or complete enough to fool someone who should have recognized her. It meant Sarah Mitchell was real. The question was whether that would be enough when her father showed up. Because he would show up, eventually. Men like Richard Hart didn't stop until they got what they wanted, or something stopped them first. Emily had spent her whole life being what her father wanted. She was done with that. If he came for her, he'd find someone he didn't recognize. Someone who'd learned to stand up straight, make eye contact, and refuse to be small. He'd find Sarah Mitchell. And Sarah Mitchell didn't belong to anyone but herself. Emily didn't see Adrian for 3 days after Vincent's visit, which was unusual. He'd been a constant presence since she'd opened the bookstore, checking in weekly at minimum. But now, radio silence except for terse text messages confirming she was safe. On the 4th day, he showed up at closing time looking like he'd been through a war. There was a cut above his eyebrow, barely visible but fresh. His knuckles were bruised. He moved carefully, like his ribs hurt. What happened to you? Emily locked the door behind him, flipping the sign to closed. Business. He sat heavily in the armchair near the window, the one Dorothy usually claimed. Vincent reported back to your father, said he found someone who looked similar but wasn't you. That's good, right? It would be, except your father didn't believe him. Adrian winced as he shifted position. He thinks Vincent is lying, that you paid him off or seduced him, or something equally ridiculous. Emily almost laughed. Vincent Moretti being seduced by a bookstore clerk? That's absurd. Your father isn't thinking clearly. He's obsessed with finding you, convinced you're still in the city hiding somewhere. Adrian looked at her directly. He's been making moves against my operations, aggressive ones. Lost a shipment yesterday, had 3 of my people arrested on trumped-up charges, and someone burned down a warehouse I own on the south side. Because of me. Because he's desperate and angry, and taking it out on the nearest target. Adrian's jaw tightened. Which happens to be me. Guilt crashed over Emily like a wave. I should leave. Go somewhere else. Let things calm down. No. His voice was flat, final. That's exactly what he wants. For you to run, make a mistake, lead him right to you. He stood, moving to the window despite the obvious pain. We're past the point of retreat. Your father declared war the moment he torched my property. Now I have to respond. Respond how? That's not your concern. It is if it's because of me. Emily moved to stand beside him. Outside, evening foot traffic moved past the bookstore, people heading home from work, normal lives continuing like the world wasn't tilting. Tell me what you're going to do. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more controlled. Your father's been cutting corners, mixing legitimate business with trafficking, using his real estate developments as fronts for money laundering. I've been gathering evidence for months. Now I'm going to use it. Use it how? Turn him in? Eventually. But first I'm going to make sure his partners know he's compromised. Make them nervous. Suspicious. He glanced at her. Criminals don't like working with people who draw federal attention. Once his network starts fracturing, he'll be too busy saving his empire to worry about finding you. It was calculated, ruthless. Exactly what Emily should have expected from Adrian Russo. But hearing him lay it out so clinically made her stomach turn. He's still my father. He's a man who sold you to Vincent Moretti like property. No sympathy in Adrian's voice, just fact. Don't romanticize what he is, Sarah. He doesn't deserve it. Sarah, he'd called her Sarah, not Emily. The distinction mattered. What if it doesn't work? What if he finds me anyway? Then I'll handle it. Adrian turned to face her fully. But it won't come to that. Trust me. I don't even know you. The words came out harsher than Emily intended. I've been living this life you created, following your instructions, becoming someone you designed. But I don't actually know anything about you except that my father considers you dangerous. Your father's right. Adrian's expression didn't change. I am dangerous. That's why you're still free instead of married to Vincent. Is that what I am? Free? Emily gestured around the bookstore. I have security watching me constantly. I can't contact anyone from my old life. I jump every time someone asks where I'm from. That's not freedom. That's just a different kind of cage. Then what do you want? Adrian's voice rose slightly, the first crack in his control she'd seen. You want to go back? Marry Vincent? Let your father dictate your entire existence? Because I can arrange that. One phone call, and this whole thing ends. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? He moved closer, and Emily could see the exhaustion behind his anger. I'm fighting a war to keep you hidden, Sarah. My people are getting hurt, my businesses are under attack, and I'm doing it because you climbed into my car and asked for help. So tell me what you actually want, because I'm getting really tired of guessing. The outburst shocked her into silence. Adrian was always controlled, always 3 steps ahead, always calm. Seeing him frayed and frustrated made him human in a way that was somehow more unsettling than his usual composure. I want to matter, Emily said quietly. I want to be more than just a problem you're solving or a pawn in whatever game you're playing with my father. I want to actually help instead of hiding while people get hurt protecting me. You can't help. You don't have the skills or the knowledge or bits. Then teach me. Emily stepped closer, refusing to back down. You said Sarah Mitchell doesn't exist yet, that I'm building her. Fine. Let me build someone useful, someone who can actually contribute instead of just being protected. Adrian stared at her like she'd suggested something insane. You want to get involved in this? In what I do? I want to stop being useless. Emily held his gaze. You've been gathering evidence on my father. I know things about his business, about his operations. I grew up in that house, listening to conversations he thought I was too stupid to understand. I know people, places, details that might help. That information is months old, useless now. Maybe. Or maybe there's something you missed, some connection you didn't see because you don't know how my father thinks. Emily crossed her arms. At least let me try. What's the worst that happens? I tell you things you already know? Adrian studied her, and Emily could practically see him running calculations, weighing risks and benefits. Finally, he pulled out his phone. Tomorrow, my office. We'll go through what you know, see if any of it's useful. He headed for the door, then paused. And Sarah, this isn't a game. If I bring you in on this, you follow my instructions exactly. No improvising, no taking risks. Understood? Understood. He left, and Emily stood alone in her bookstore, wondering if she'd just made a terrible mistake or the first real choice of her new life. The next morning, Adrian sent a car. Not the same one from the day she'd run, but similar. Black, tinted windows. A driver who didn't make conversation. They drove for 40 minutes, leaving the city proper and heading into an area Emily vaguely recognized as industrial. Warehouses and distribution centers, the kind of anonymous buildings that could house anything. The car pulled up to a 3-story structure that looked abandoned from the outside. Broken windows, graffiti on the walls, weeds growing through cracks in the pavement. But when the driver used a keycard to open a side door, Emily saw the deception. Inside was clean, modern, high-tech. Security cameras everywhere, reinforced doors, the kind of setup that costs serious money. This way, Miss Mitchell. The driver led her through corridors that felt more like a bunker than an office building, eventually stopping at a door marked simply with the number 7. Inside, Adrian sat at a table covered in papers, maps, and multiple laptops. He looked better than yesterday. The cut above his eyebrow had been properly treated, and he'd changed into fresh clothes, but the exhaustion was still there, visible in the way he held his shoulders. Sarah, sit. He gestured to a chair across from him. Before we start, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to show you is enough to get both of us killed if it ends up in the wrong hands. You sure you want to do this? Emily sat. I'm sure. Then let's begin. Adrian pulled out a file folder, spreading photos across the table. Emily recognized most of the faces, her father's inner circle, men who'd been at the house for dinners and meetings her whole life. These are your father's primary associates. Tell me everything you know about each one. For the next 3 hours, Emily talked. She told Adrian about Michael Chen, her father's accountant, who had a gambling problem and took money from the business to cover debts. About Thomas Wade, who handled real estate acquisitions and had a mistress in Philadelphia he visited every third weekend. About Carlos Mendoza, head of security, who was fiercely loyal to her father but had a daughter with medical issues that cost a fortune. Adrian took notes, asking sharp questions, pushing for details Emily didn't think she remembered until she started talking. Places, dates, overheard conversations, the kind of background noise she'd absorbed without realizing it meant anything. Your father met with someone from Philadelphia regularly, Adrian said, studying one of his maps. Always the third weekend of the month. Did you ever hear a name? Emily thought back, trying to remember. Wade went to Philadelphia, not my father. But there was someone who came to the house sometimes. Older guy, spoke with an accent. Russian, maybe? My father called him Sergei. Adrian's head snapped up. Sergei Volkov? I don't know his last name, but he always arrived late at night, never stayed more than an hour. What did they talk about? I don't know. My father sent me away whenever Sergei showed up. Emily tried to remember more details. But once I heard them arguing, Sergei wanted something, and my father said it was too risky, that the FBI was already watching too closely. When was this? Maybe 8 months ago? Right before my father announced my engagement to Vincent. Adrian started typing rapidly on one of the laptops. Sergei Volkov runs arms through Philadelphia and New York. If your father was meeting with him, it means he was expanding beyond money laundering and trafficking. Into weapons? Exactly. Adrian pulled up files, cross-referencing dates. I knew your father was diversifying, but I didn't know how deep it went. This changes things. It changes them how? It means he has more to lose than I thought. More people who'll turn on him if he becomes a liability. Adrian looked at her with something that might have been respect. You were right. You did have information I needed. Pride bloomed in Emily's chest, warm and unfamiliar. She'd contributed something, actually helped instead of just existing as a problem to be solved. They worked through lunch, Emily pulling up memories she'd buried, Adrian fitting them into the larger picture of her father's criminal network. By mid-afternoon, they had a timeline that showed Richard Hart was far more connected than even Adrian had suspected. Your father's been playing a dangerous game, Adrian said, leaning back in his chair. Partners with the Russians, alliance with Vincent's organization, plus his own independent operations. He's overextended. What does that mean for me? It means he's vulnerable. If I can expose his connection to Volkov, the FBI will have to act. They've been trying to bring down Volkov for years. Your father becomes a path to him. Adrian's smile was cold. And once federal agents are crawling through Richard Hart's life, he won't have time to look for you. Emily should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt hollow. He'll go to prison. He'll deserve to go to prison. Adrian's voice softened slightly. I know he's your father, Sarah, but he's also a criminal who sold you to another criminal. Those two things can both be true. I know. Emily stood, needing to move. The room suddenly felt too small. I just thought I'd feel different. Happy, maybe, or satisfied. But I just feel tired. That's normal. Betraying family is hard, even when they betrayed you first. Adrian stood as well, moving around the table. But you're not betraying him. You're protecting yourself. There's a difference. Is there? Emily turned to face him. Because it feels like I'm using information I only have because he's my father to destroy him. That seems like betrayal to me. He used you to seal a business deal. Literal human trafficking dressed up as marriage. Adrian's voice hardened. If anyone's the traitor here, it's him. You're just refusing to be a victim anymore. The words hit something deep in Emily, some knot of guilt and shame she'd been carrying since the wedding day. Maybe longer. Maybe her whole life. What happens now? She asked. Now I verify what you've told me, build a case, and hand it to people who can use it. FBI, probably, or maybe ATF if the weapons angle is solid enough. Adrian started gathering papers. Meanwhile, you go back to being Sarah Mitchell. Run your bookstore. Live your life. Let me handle the messy parts. I want to be involved. The words surprised Emily even as she said them. Not just as an information source, actually involved. Absolutely not. Why? Because you're not trained, not equipped, and frankly not ready for what that would mean. Adrian's tone left no room for argument. You've been Sarah Mitchell for 3 months. That's not enough time to know how to survive in my world. Then teach me. You taught me how to be Sarah, how to disappear. Teach me how to be more than just someone hiding. Adrian studied her for a long moment. Why? What do you think you're going to accomplish? I don't know yet, but I know I'm tired of being afraid, tired of waiting for my father or Vincent to find me. If I'm going to live like this, constantly looking over my shoulder, I want to at least understand what I'm up against. Understanding and participating are different things. I'm aware. Emily met his gaze steadily. I'm asking anyway. For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian looked genuinely uncertain, like she'd presented a problem he didn't know how to solve. Let me think about it, he said finally. Meanwhile, you have a bookstore to run. My driver will take you back. The dismissal was clear. Emily gathered her things but paused at the door. Thank you for listening. I haven't agreed to anything. I know, but you didn't say no immediately, which for you is basically a yes. She smiled slightly. I'm learning how you work, Adrian. That's what worries me. But there was warmth in his voice, the barest hint of amusement. Go home, Sarah. Be safe. The driver took her back to the bookstore where Marcus was managing the afternoon rush with admirable efficiency. Emily jumped in to help, losing herself in the familiar rhythm of customer service and book recommendations. But her mind kept circling back to the files in Adrian's office, to the network of crime her father had built, to the realization that she'd been living in that world her entire life without fully understanding it. She'd been so focused on escaping that she'd never stopped to think about the damage her father had done, the people he'd hurt, the lives he'd ruined. She'd benefited from that money, lived in luxury built on suffering. That made her complicit, didn't it? The thought sat heavy in her chest through the rest of the day. Dorothy came in around 4, her usual Thursday visit. You look troubled, dear, she said, selecting 3 new mysteries from the display. Just thinking too much. About anything I can help with? Emily smiled despite herself. Unless you know how to stop feeling guilty about things you can't control, probably not. Ah, that. Dorothy's expression turned knowing. I've spent 67 years feeling guilty about things that weren't my fault. Want to know what I learned? Please. Guilt is just fear wearing a different hat. You're not actually sorry about what happened. You're scared of what it means about you. Dorothy patted her hand. Whatever you're carrying, Sarah, it's not as heavy as you think, and you don't have to carry it alone. The kindness broke something in Emily. She blinked back sudden tears, managed a watery smile. Thank you. Any time, dear. Now ring me up before I find more books I don't need. After Dorothy left, Emily stood behind the register and let herself feel it. The guilt, the fear, the weight of everything she'd learned today. Then she took a breath, straightened her shoulders, and let it go. She couldn't change her father, couldn't undo his crimes or take back the years she'd lived in ignorance. But she could choose what happened next, and she was choosing to stop being a victim of circumstances she didn't create. That evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Adrian. Tomorrow, 8 a.m. Bring comfortable clothes and be ready to learn. Emily read it 3 times, then responded with a single word. Ready. She wasn't, not really. But Sarah Mitchell didn't wait until she was ready. She moved forward anyway, one uncertain step at a time, building courage from necessity. That night, Emily slept better than she had in months. The next morning, the same driver picked her up at 7:30. This time they went to a different location, a gym in an industrial part of town that looked too clean to be abandoned but too empty to be operating normally. Inside, Adrian was waiting with a woman Emily had never seen before. Late 30s, athletic build, wearing workout clothes, and an expression that suggested she didn't suffer fools. Sarah Mitchell, meet Diana Chen. She's going to teach you some basic self-defense. Chen like Mrs. Chen? Her daughter, actually. Diana extended a hand. Emily shook it, trying not to wince at the grip's strength. My mother says you're stubborn and smarter than you pretend. That true? I'm working on it. Good. Stubborn I can work with. Diana gestured to the mats in the center of the gym. Adrian tells me you've never had any training. That right? My father said that's what bodyguards were for. Your father was wrong. Diana moved to the mats, motioning for Emily to follow. Rule 1. Nobody can protect you better than you protect yourself. Rule 2. Fighting isn't about being strong, it's about being smart. Rule 3. If you can run, run. If you can't run, make them regret cornering you. For the next 2 hours, Diana put Emily through drills that left her sweating, frustrated, and more aware of her body than she'd ever been. How to break a grip, where to strike if someone grabbed her, how to use momentum instead of strength. Emily was terrible at it. She fell more than she succeeded, couldn't remember the sequences, got winded after 10 minutes, but Diana didn't let her quit. Again, Diana reset her stance. You're thinking too much. Stop thinking. Start reacting. I can't just stop thinking. Yes, you can. Your body knows what to do if you let it. Diana demonstrated the movement again, slower this time. Watch. Hip rotation, not arm strength. Use my momentum against me. Emily tried again, failed again, tried once more. This time she felt it click. The shift of weight, the rotation, the way Diana's own motion helped the technique work. It wasn't perfect, but it was closer. Better, Diana nodded approval. You're learning. Keep practicing. By the end of the session, Emily could barely lift her arms. Every muscle hurt. She felt like she'd been hit by a truck. She also felt powerful. Adrian handed her a water bottle, watching as she collapsed on a bench. You did well. I fell on my face 7 times. 8, actually, but you got up every time. He sat beside her. That's the point. Not being perfect, being persistent. Emily drank half the water bottle in one go. Is this what you meant by teaching me? Self-defense classes? This is part of it. Diana will work with you 3 times a week, teach you how to handle yourself if something goes wrong. Adrian's expression was serious. But there's more. I'm going to teach you about my business, how it works, how to spot threats. Give you the tools to understand the world you're living in. Why? What changed your mind? You did. He looked at her directly. Yesterday, you could have just given me information and gone back to your bookstore. Instead, you asked to be part of this. That takes guts. And despite what you think, you're not useless. You're just untrained. So you're training me. I'm giving you options. What you do with them is up to you. Adrian stood, extending a hand to help her up. Diana will see you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings. The rest of the time, you're with me, learning how to see patterns, read people, understand leverage. Emily took his hand, let him pull her to her feet. This is really happening. Only if you want it to. His grip was firm, steady. But once we start, there's no going back. You'll know things that can't be unknown. Understand? Emily thought about the quiet life she could have. Just Sarah Mitchell, bookseller, living in peaceful anonymity. Safe and small and unremarkable. Then she thought about being more. Being someone who could protect herself, who understood the shadows she'd been living in her whole life. I understand. Emily squeezed his hand once before letting go. When do we start? We already have. Adrian smiled, and for the first time it looked genuine. Welcome to the deep end, Sarah. Try not to drown. 2 months of training turned Emily into someone she barely recognized. Not physically, though Diana's sessions had given her muscle definition she'd never had before. The change was deeper, in the way she moved through the world. She noticed things now. Exit routes, people watching too long, the weight of someone following half a block behind. Adrian called it situational awareness. Emily called it exhausting. But it kept her alive. She was leaving the bookstore on a Tuesday evening when she spotted him. A man across the street pretending to look at his phone but watching her storefront. Not one of Adrian's people. She knew all of them by now. This was someone new. Emily pulled out her phone, keeping her movements casual as she texted Adrian. Watcher. East side across from store, gray jacket, jeans. His response came within seconds. Stay inside. Colin's 2 minutes out. But Emily had already noticed something else. A second man moving up the sidewalk from the south. Third one getting out of a car at the corner. They were coordinating, positioning themselves. This wasn't surveillance. This was a grab. Emily's training kicked in before the fear could. She locked the front door from inside, moved to the back room where the emergency exit led to the alley. Her hand was on the panic button Adrian had given her when the front window exploded. Glass shattered across the bookstore floor. The first man came through, moving fast, a gun already in his hand. Don't run, Emily. Your father just wants to talk. So much for being Sarah Mitchell. Emily hit the panic button and ran for the back exit. Behind her, she heard more glass breaking, multiple footsteps. They weren't being subtle anymore. The alley was dark, lit only by a single streetlight 50 feet away. Emily sprinted toward it, her breath coming in harsh gasps. Behind her, the back door slammed open. There! A gunshot cracked through the air. The brick wall beside Emily's head exploded into dust. She ducked, stumbled, caught herself on a dumpster and kept running. Diana's voice echoed in her head. If you can run, run! Emily ran. She made it to the street, saw headlights approaching fast. For one terrible second, she thought it was them, thought they'd cut her off. Then the car screeched to a stop and Adrian was there, door open, yelling, "Get in!" Emily dove into the passenger seat. Adrian was already moving before she'd closed the door, tires screaming as he took the corner too fast. In the rearview mirror, Emily saw her pursuers scrambling back to their own vehicles. How many? Adrian's voice was calm, controlled, completely at odds with the way he was driving. 3, maybe 4. They knew my real name. Emily's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, trying to stop it. They came for Emily, not Sarah. I know. Adrian took another turn, then another, weaving through side streets with the kind of precision that said he'd planned for this. Your father made his move. Bigger than I expected. Where are we going? Somewhere safe. Hold on. He accelerated through an intersection just as the light turned red, cutting off their pursuers. 2 more turns and they were on the highway, heading north out of the city. Emily finally looked at Adrian. He was wearing the same cold expression she'd seen that first day in the car, the one that reminded her exactly who she'd climbed in with. Dangerous. Capable. Someone who knew how to survive in a world that had just crashed back into her life with bullets and broken glass. My bookstore, she said quietly. I'll have people secure it. We'll deal with the damage later. He glanced at her. You're okay. That's what matters. I don't feel okay. I feel like an idiot for thinking 3 months was enough time for them to forget about me. They didn't forget. Your father was just waiting for the right moment. Adrian's jaw tightened. I should have seen this coming. Should have had more people on you. You had Colin. He was 2 minutes away. That's not your fault. He should have been 30 seconds away. Adrian's voice went hard. This is on me. They drove in silence for another 20 minutes. The city fell away behind them, replaced by trees and darkness. Finally, Adrian turned onto a private road that wound through dense forest. At the end, hidden behind a wall of pines, stood a house Emily had seen once before. His house. The place where all this had started. Mrs. Chen met them at the door, took one look at Emily's face, and immediately pulled her into a hug. Thank goodness. We were so worried. She stepped back, examining Emily for injuries. Are you hurt? No. Scared, but not hurt. Emily managed a shaky smile. Your daughter's training paid off. I ran instead of freezing. Good girl. Mrs. Chen looked at Adrian. Colin called. He has 3 of them in custody. The 4th got away. Names? He's working on it, but they're not local talent. Professionals, probably brought in from out of state. Adrian nodded grimly. My office, 30 minutes. Get Sarah settled first. Mrs. Chen led Emily upstairs to the same guest room she'd stayed in months ago. It felt like returning to a previous life, one where she'd been scared and small and completely dependent on Adrian's protection. She'd changed since then. The girl who'd hidden in this room wouldn't have noticed the men watching her store, wouldn't have run efficiently instead of panicking, wouldn't have made it to Adrian's car alive. Progress, Emily thought bitterly. She'd graduated from helpless to merely targeted. Mrs. Chen brought tea and sandwiches Emily couldn't eat. She tried anyway, managing a few bites while her mind spun through what had just happened. They'd called her Emily, used her real name, which meant her father knew exactly where she'd been, probably for weeks. He'd just been waiting, gathering resources, planning the grab, and she'd been playing bookseller, thinking she was safe. A knock at the door interrupted her spiral. Come in. Adrian entered, carrying a laptop and looking like he'd aged 5 years in the last hour. We need to talk. I figured. Emily set down her tea. How bad is it? Colin got information from one of the men. Your father hired a crew out of Chicago, professional kidnappers, paid them $50,000 up front, another $50,000 on delivery. Adrian sat in the chair across from her. They've been watching you for 6 weeks. Knew your routine, knew when you'd be vulnerable. Tonight was just the first attempt. There'll be others. Yes. Adrian's voice was flat. Your father's not stopping. Vincent's putting up half the money, which means they're working together now. Both of them want you found. Emily felt something cold settle in her chest. So what do we do? I can't keep running forever. No, you can't. Adrian opened his laptop, turning it so she could see the screen, which is why we're ending this. Tonight. The screen showed a file directory, hundreds of documents organized by date and category. Emily recognized some of the names, her father's associates, the people she'd told Adrian about months ago. You built a case. I built several cases. Federal prosecutors have been reviewing the evidence for weeks. Your father's connection to Sergei Volkov, the weapons trafficking, money laundering through his real estate holdings. Adrian pulled up another file. And Vincent's involvement in several murders, including 2 federal witnesses. The FBI has been waiting for the right moment to move. And tonight, is that moment? Tonight, your father sent armed men to kidnap you. That's conspiracy to commit kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, and about 6 other felonies. Adrian's smile was sharp, dangerous. More importantly, it gave me leverage. I made a call while you were up here. Federal agents are executing search warrants on your father's properties as we speak. Emily stared at him. You're turning him in. I'm giving the FBI everything they need to dismantle his entire organization. Your father, Vincent, Volkov, they all go down together. He closed the laptop. By morning, Richard Hart will be in federal custody, and you'll be free. The word should have felt like victory. Instead, Emily felt numb. He's still my father. I know. Adrian's voice softened. But he stopped being your father when he sold you to Vincent. What he is now is a criminal who endangered you, and criminals face consequences. What about me? Won't I have to testify or something? No. The evidence stands without your involvement. You're a victim, not a witness. The prosecutors know you exist, but they don't need you for their case. Adrian leaned forward. You can stay Sarah Mitchell. Live your life. Your father won't be able to touch you from prison. Emily stood, needing to move. She went to the window, looking out at grounds lit by security lights. Out there, federal agents were tearing apart her father's empire. The house she'd grown up in was probably being searched right now, everything she'd left behind cataloged as evidence. What happens to my mother? She'll be questioned, but unless she was directly involved in your father's criminal activities, she won't be charged. Adrian joined her at the window. She'll probably divorce him, try to salvage what she can from the assets that aren't seized. She won't. Emily's voice was quiet. She'll stand by him. That's what she does. Stand by Richard Hart no matter what, because leaving would mean admitting she made a mistake marrying him. Then that's her choice. Adrian's hand settled on her shoulder, warm and grounding. You made yours when you ran. You don't owe her your safety. Emily turned to face him. What happens to us? The question hung between them. Us. When had there become an us? Adrian's expression shifted, something uncertain crossing his face. What do you want to happen? I don't know. Emily was surprised to find it was true. 6 months ago, I climbed into your car desperate and terrified. You gave me a place to hide, an identity to wear, protection I didn't deserve. But I don't know what we are now. Employer and employee? Allies? Something else? Something else. Adrian's voice was rough. I didn't plan on this. On you. You were supposed to be a problem I solved, leverage against your father, but you became... He stopped, searching for words. Real. You became real to me. As Emily or as Sarah? As both. As whoever you actually are under all the names and identities. His hand moved from her shoulder to her face, gentle despite the calluses. I know you, Sarah. The girl who learned to cook because she wanted control over something. Who reads poetry when she can't sleep. Who built a bookstore into a real business because she needed to prove she could create instead of just run. Emily felt tears prickling at her eyes. You've been paying attention. Always. His thumb brushed her cheek. You think I visit that bookstore every week for the mediocre coffee? Despite everything, Emily laughed. The coffee is excellent, and you know it. It's adequate at best. Adrian smiled, and it transformed his face. Made him look younger, less burdened. But watching you talk to customers, recommend books, build something that matters, that's excellent. Adrian, her phone rang, cutting through the moment. Adrian stepped back, his expression shuddering as Emily checked the screen. Unknown number. She showed it to Adrian, who nodded. Answer it. Put it on speaker. Emily's hand shook slightly as she accepted the call. Hello? Emily. Her father's voice tight with rage. Whatever you think you're doing, it ends now. I don't know what you're talking about. Emily kept her voice steady, channeling Sarah Mitchell's composure. Don't play games with me. Federal agents are at my house, my office, every property I own. They have warrants, evidence, everything they need to destroy me. His voice dropped to something dangerous. You did this, you and Adrian Russo. I left your house 6 months ago. What happened after that isn't my responsibility. You're my daughter's. No. The word came out stronger than Emily expected. I was your daughter. The girl you promised to a man old enough to be your father. The one you used as a business transaction. That girl doesn't exist anymore. Emily. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I don't know anyone named Richard Hart. She looked at Adrian as she said it, saw approval in his eyes. Lose this number. She hung up before her father could respond. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Emily started shaking, adrenaline and emotion finally catching up with her. Adrian pulled her into his arms, and she let herself break just for a minute, just long enough to feel the weight of what she'd done. You okay? He asked quietly. No, but I will be. Emily pulled back, wiping at her eyes. Did I really just tell my father to lose my number? You did. Adrian's smile was proud. Sarah Mitchell has a spine. I like her. She learned from watching you. Emily managed a watery laugh, though she's still terrified most of the time. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing it anyway. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. You've been brave since the day you ran, Sarah. You just didn't realize it. Adrian's phone buzzed. He checked it, and his expression hardened. They got Vincent. Federal agents picked him up at his hotel an hour ago. He kept reading. Your father's in custody. 6 of his associates arrested. Sergei Volkov is fighting extradition from Philadelphia, but they'll get him eventually. It's over. Emily said it out loud, testing the words. It's actually over. The criminal case is just beginning, but the part where they can hurt you? Yeah, that's over. Adrian pocketed his phone. You're free, Sarah. Actually free this time. Free. The word felt impossible and perfect at the same time. Emily looked around the room, at the house where she'd first become Sarah Mitchell, and realized she didn't want to be here. This was the place where Emily Hart had hidden. Sarah Mitchell didn't hide anymore. I want to go back to the bookstore, she said. Tonight? It's not safe yet. Then make it safe. Emily met his eyes. I'm not hiding anymore, Adrian. That's my life, my business, my home. I want to go back to it. For a moment, she thought he'd argue. Then he nodded. Give me 2 hours to secure the area. Then we'll go back together. Those 2 hours felt endless. Emily showered, changed into clothes Mrs. Chen brought her, tried not to think about the fact that her father was in federal custody because of information she'd provided, tried not to feel guilty about feeling relieved. Mrs. Chen found her in the kitchen around midnight, staring at coffee she wasn't drinking. You know, when I first met you, I thought you were the saddest thing I'd ever seen. Mrs. Chen sat beside her, this tiny girl in a wedding dress, scared of her own shadow. I was pathetic. You were trapped. There's a difference. Mrs. Chen poured herself coffee. But you're not trapped anymore. And you're not tiny. You've grown. Into what? Into yourself. Mrs. Chen smiled. My daughter tells me you're getting good at self-defense. Says you have natural instincts once you stop overthinking. Diana's being generous. I still fall on my face half the time. But you get back up. That's what matters. Mrs. Chen touched her hand. Mr. Russo is a good man despite what he does for a living. He cares about you. More than he's cared about anyone in a long time. Emily felt heat rise to her cheeks. It's not like that. Isn't it? Mrs. Chen's expression was knowing. He started a war for you, Sarah. Took on your father, Vincent Moretti, everyone. Men don't do that for people they don't care about. He did it for leverage. to weaken my father's organization. He did it because you mattered more than the risk. Mrs. Chen stood, collecting their coffee cups. The question is, what are you going to do about it? She left before Emily could formulate an answer. Adrian appeared an hour later, dressed in dark clothes that made him look like he was going to war. Ready? As I'll ever be. They drove back to the city in silence, but it was comfortable now. Companionable. Emily watched the city lights get brighter as they approached and felt something settle in her chest. Relief, maybe. Or purpose. The bookstore looked worse than she'd expected. The front window was completely gone, glass covering everything. The door hung crooked on its hinges. Inside, books were scattered across the floor, shelves knocked over in the chaos. But it was still standing. Emily walked through the destruction, picking up books, assessing the damage. Fixable. All of it was fixable. I'll have people here tomorrow, Adrian said from the doorway. New window, new door, whatever you need. Thank you. Emily set down a water-damaged poetry collection. For everything, not just tonight, but all of it. You didn't have to help me, but you did. You climbed into my car asking for help. What kind of man would I be if I'd turned you away? The kind most people are. Emily moved closer to him, stepping over broken glass. You gave me a life, Adrian. A real one. That's not something I can repay. I don't want repayment. His voice was rough. I want... The moment stretched between them, charged with everything they hadn't said over the past 6 months. Emily could feel her heart racing, could see the same uncertainty in Adrian's eyes that she felt in her chest. She'd spent her whole life waiting for someone to make decisions for her. Waiting to be told what to do, who to be, how to live. She was done waiting. Emily closed the distance between them and kissed him. For half a second, Adrian froze, surprised. Then his arms came around her, pulling her closer, and he was kissing her back like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. It wasn't smooth or perfect. Their noses bumped, Emily's hands didn't know where to go, and they were standing in a destroyed bookstore surrounded by broken glass. But it was real, honest. The first thing in Emily's life that was entirely her choice. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. That was unexpected. Was it? Emily's voice shook slightly. Mrs. Chen said you started a war for me. Mrs. Chen talks too much. But he was smiling, though she's not wrong. Why did you? Really? Emily needed to hear it. Not the strategic reasons or the leverage. Why did you care what happened to me? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter than she'd ever heard it. Because you reminded me that there are still things worth protecting in this world. People worth fighting for. His hand cupped her face. I've spent 10 years in this business, Sarah. Seen every kind of terrible thing humans can do to each other. And then you climbed into my car, terrified but trying so hard to be brave, and I remembered what it felt like to care about someone. You barely knew me. I knew enough. Knew you were desperate enough to trust a stranger. Knew you were running from something bad enough to risk the unknown. His thumb brushed her cheek. And I knew if I let you go, you'd end up dead or worse. I couldn't let that happen. Emily felt tears starting again. She was crying more in one night than she'd cried in years, but these were different. Not fear or sadness, but release. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. A relationship, or whatever this is. I've never had one that wasn't arranged or transactional. Neither have I. Adrian's admission surprised her. My world doesn't exactly lend itself to normal dating. So we figure it out together, make mistakes, learn as we go. Emily managed to smile. I'm good at learning. You've been teaching me for months. That I have. Adrian kissed her forehead, gentle despite everything. Stay with me tonight, at the house. Come back tomorrow and deal with all this. I have a business to run. Marcus can handle one day. You've trained him well. Adrian's voice turned serious. Please, Sarah, let me have one night knowing you're safe. The vulnerability in his voice decided her. Okay. One night. They drove back to his house in the early hours of the morning, the city quiet around them. Emily dozed in the passenger seat, exhausted from adrenaline and emotion. She woke when the car stopped, found Adrian watching her with an expression that made her chest tight. What? She asked. Nothing. Just thinking about how different you look when you're relaxed, like you're finally breathing right. I am breathing right. For the first time in my life, actually. Emily stretched, feeling muscles protest from Diana's training and tonight's running. Everything hurts. That's what happens when you get shot at and escape kidnappers in one evening. Adrian came around to open her door. Come on, real sleep, not car naps. Mrs. Chen had left the guest room prepared, but Emily found herself hesitating at the door. Where's your room? Adrian pointed down the hall. End of the corridor. Why? Because I don't want to sleep alone tonight. The admission came easier than Emily expected. Not asking for anything except company. I just don't want to be alone. Understanding crossed Adrian's face. Okay, come on. Come. His room was exactly what Emily had expected. Minimally furnished, meticulously organized, with the kind of security measures that suggested he didn't sleep deeply. But the bed was large and comfortable, and when she climbed under the covers fully clothed, she felt safer than she'd felt all day. Adrian lay down beside her, maintaining careful distance. I'm not going to break, Emily said quietly. I know, but you've been through a lot tonight. I don't want to... Emily rolled over, pressing against his side. Just hold me, please. His arm came around her, pulling her close. Emily tucked her head against his shoulder and felt the last tension drain from her body. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For seeing me. For giving me a chance to become someone worth being. Emily's eyes were already closing. For not giving up on me even when I would have given up on myself. Sarah. His voice was rough. You were always worth being. You just needed the space to figure that out. Emily fell asleep feeling safe, valued, and free for the first time in 23 years. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. Adrian was already up, sitting in a chair by the window with his laptop, wearing reading glasses that made him look less dangerous and more human. You wear glasses. He glanced up, almost sheepish. Only when I'm reading. Vanity keeps me in contacts the rest of the time. They look good on you. Emily sat up, running a hand through her tangled hair. What time is it? Almost 10. I let you sleep. Adrian closed his laptop. Federal prosecutors want to meet with you, voluntarily, just to confirm some details about your father's operations. I told them you'd think about it. I'll do it. Emily's voice was clear, certain. Whatever helps make sure he stays locked up. You sure? Completely. Emily got out of bed, found her phone on the nightstand. 17 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. Who do you think that is? Probably reporters. Your father's arrest is making news. Daughter of prominent businessman Richard Hart, missing for 6 months, surfaces just as father is arrested on federal charges. Adrian's expression darkened. They're going to want your story. They can't have it. Sarah Mitchell's story is her own. Emily deleted the voicemails without listening. Besides, I have a bookstore to rebuild. Over the next month, Emily's world transformed again. The bookstore reopened with a new window, reinforced door, and security system that would make a bank jealous. Marcus got a raise and a promotion to assistant manager. Dorothy organized a neighborhood fundraiser that brought in enough money to replace all the damaged inventory and then some. Sarah Mitchell became a minor local celebrity, the brave bookstore owner who'd survived an attempted robbery and kept her business going. The irony wasn't lost on Emily. Her father's trial was set for 6 months out. Vincent Moretti took a plea deal to avoid life in prison, agreeing to testify against Richard Hart and Sergei Volkov. Emily's mother called once, leaving a voicemail that Emily deleted without listening. Some bridges were better burned. Diana continued training her 3 times a week. Emily got better, faster, more confident. She'd never be a fighter, but she knew how to protect herself. That was enough. And Adrian became part of her daily life in ways that felt natural, instead of obligatory. He still checked on the bookstore, but now he stayed for coffee, helped with inventory, charmed customers with unexpected book recommendations. He was careful with her in public, aware that Sarah Mitchell couldn't be openly involved with someone like him. But in private, he was hers, completely. 3 months after her father's arrest, Emily stood in her bookstore and realized she was happy. Actually, genuinely happy. Not the careful contentment of Sarah Mitchell pretending to have a life, but real joy in the business she'd built, the friends she'd made, the future she was creating. Adrian found her standing in the middle of the poetry section, smiling at nothing. What are you thinking about? How far I've run. Emily turned to face him. 6 months ago, I was Emily Hart, running from a wedding in a dress that weighed more than my courage. Now I'm Sarah Mitchell, bookstore owner, and I don't recognize that girl anymore. Do you miss her? No, she was miserable. Emily moved closer to him. But I wouldn't be here without her. She ran. That took everything she had. And now? Now I'm not running anymore. I'm building. Emily gestured around the bookstore. This is mine. The business, the life, the choices. All of it belongs to me. Adrian pulled her into his arms, careful despite the public setting. I'm proud of you. You know that? You've mentioned it. Emily smiled against his chest. But I like hearing it anyway. Then I'll keep saying it. He kissed the top of her head. You've become exactly who you were supposed to be. Someone strong, independent, capable. Sarah Mitchell is real because you made her real. We made her real. Emily looked up at him. I couldn't have done this alone. Maybe not, but you did the hard part. You chose to run, chose to change, chose to become someone new. Adrian's voice was soft. I just gave you the space to do it. Marcus called from the register, needing help with a customer. Emily reluctantly pulled away from Adrian, returning to the work she loved. That evening, after closing, Adrian took her to the roof of a building he owned downtown. The city spread out below them, lights twinkling like stars. I come here sometimes, he said, when I need perspective. Reminds me the world is bigger than the problems I'm dealing with. It's beautiful. Emily moved to the edge, looking down at the streets where she'd built her life. I can see the bookstore from here, that tiny light on the corner. Your empire. Adrian stood beside her, small but mighty. Speaking of empire, what happens to yours, now that my father's organization is dismantled and Vincent's locked up? Emily had wondered, but never asked. What do you do with all that power? Honestly? I'm thinking about going legitimate. The restaurants and nightclubs I own, they actually make money without the illegal side. Maybe focus on that. He looked at her. Build something legal, something that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder constantly. Because of me? Because of us. Adrian took her hand. I'm tired of living in the shadows, Sarah. I want a life where I can take you to dinner without worrying who's watching, where we can build something together that isn't secret. Emily's heart raced. What are you saying? I'm saying I want a future. With you. If you want that too. Adrian turned to face her fully. I know it's complicated. I know my past doesn't just disappear, but I'm willing to try if you are. Emily looked at the man who'd saved her, protected her, helped her become someone worth being. He wasn't perfect. He'd done things she probably didn't want to know about, lived in ways that would never be entirely clean. But he'd chosen her, fought for her, believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. I want that too, she said quietly. A future. Together. Building something real. Adrian's smile was genuine, reaching his eyes in a way she rarely saw. Then let's build it. You and me, Sarah Mitchell. You and me, Adrian Russo. Emily kissed him, tasting possibility and hope. Partners. Partners. He agreed against her lips. In everything. 6 months later, Emily stood in her expanded bookstore. She'd taken over the space next door, doubled her inventory, hired 2 more employees, and watched Adrian talk to a customer about historical fiction. He was good at it, surprisingly. Knew the books, understood what people wanted. He'd been spending more time at the bookstore lately, claiming he needed to understand her business if they were going to be partners. Emily suspected he just liked being around her. The feeling was mutual. Her phone buzzed with the text from Diana. Training at 6 tomorrow. Don't be late. Emily smiled. She'd gotten good enough that Diana had started teaching her advanced techniques, the kind reserved for serious students. It felt like respect, hard-earned and genuine. Dorothy came in around 4, her usual time, and headed straight for the mystery section. She'd become a fixture, practically furniture at this point. Some days Emily wondered if Dorothy had anywhere else to be, but she never asked. Everyone needed a place where they belonged. That's what the bookstore had become, not just a business, but a community. A place where people felt safe, welcome, seen. Emily had built that, one recommendation and smile at a time. Marcus appeared at her elbow. "Boss, there's a reporter outside asking about Richard Hart. Want me to tell them to leave?" Emily glanced out the window. A young woman with a press badge and a camera operator waited on the sidewalk. "I'll handle it." Emily walked outside, Adrian following at a discreet distance. "Can I help you?" "Sarah Mitchell? I'm writing a follow-up piece on the Richard Hart case. Is it true you're his daughter?" Emily had prepared for this question, knew it would come eventually. "I don't have a father. I have a bookstore, a business I built from nothing, and a life that's entirely my own." She smiled politely. "If you're looking for Emily Hart, she doesn't exist anymore. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have customers to help." She went back inside, leaving the reporter on the sidewalk looking disappointed. Adrian was grinning when she returned. That was perfect. "I've had practice being someone else. Might as well use it." Emily checked the register, confirmed Marcus had everything under control. "Dinner tonight, your place or mine?" "Yours. I'll cook." Adrian moved closer, voice dropping. "And maybe stay over if you're amenable." Very amenable. Emily's smile was private, just for him. "You know I love your cooking." "Among other things, I hope." "Among many things." Emily kissed him quickly, aware they were in public but not caring as much as she used to. "Now go pretend to browse so Marcus doesn't realize his boss is making out with customers during business hours." "I'm a very important customer. I've spent thousands here." "You've bought books you don't read and coffee you claim is mediocre. That's not the same as being important." But Emily was smiling as she said it. That night in her apartment above the bookstore, Emily cooked dinner with Adrian while music played from her phone. They moved around each other easily, comfortable in the small space. He chopped vegetables while she managed the stove, their conversation flowing from bookstore gossip to his plans for converting one of his nightclubs into a jazz venue. It was domestic and normal, and everything Emily had never thought she'd have. After dinner, they sat on her small balcony, sharing wine and watching the neighborhood settle into evening. Below them, the bookstore's lights were off, the closed sign visible from above. "Do you ever regret it?" Adrian asked quietly. "Giving up your old life, your family, your name, everything you knew?" Emily thought about it honestly. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd gone through with the wedding, if I'd married Vincent, lived that life." She sipped her wine. "But then I remember who I was, invisible, scared, voiceless, and I know I made the right choice. Even though it was hard? Especially because it was hard." Emily leaned against him. "Easy choices don't change you. Hard ones do, and I like who I've become." Sarah Mitchell, bookstore owner and occasional badass. "Occasional?" Emily raised an eyebrow. "I took down 2 guys in training last week. Diana said I'm getting scary good. My apologies, full-time badass." Adrian kissed her temple. "Though you're still terrible at poker." "That's because you cheat." "I don't cheat. I'm just better at reading people than you are." They argued about it playfully, the way couples do when the argument doesn't matter, when it's just an excuse to be close. Eventually they went inside to Emily's bedroom with its mismatched furniture and shelves overflowing with books. Later, in the darkness, Adrian's voice found her. "I love you." The words hung in the air, simple and terrifying and perfect. Emily had spent 23 years hearing people tell her what she should be, what they needed from her, how she failed to meet expectations. But no one had ever said they loved her. Not like this. Not as a choice instead of an obligation. "I love you too," she whispered back. "The you who started a war for me. The you who believed I could be more than a victim. The you who sees me as Sarah, not Emily's ghost. You were never a ghost. You were always real. You just needed permission to exist." Adrian pulled her closer. "I'm glad you found it." "I'm glad I found you." Emily closed her eyes, feeling safe and loved and free. "Even if I did technically break into your car to do it. Best break-in of my life." She could hear the smile in his voice. Changed everything. It had changed everything. One desperate choice in a church corridor had led to this. A life Emily had built with her own hands. A love she'd chosen instead.